The locker room smelled of sweat and steel. A quiet hum of fluorescent lights buzzing overhead as I stood frozen, my heart pounding like a drum. I'd always thought I knew who I was. Elliot Harper, 28. Corporate drone. Straight as an arrow, but in that moment, with his hand on my wrist and his breath warm against my neck, everything I'd built my life on started to crack. I wasn't ready for what came next, and neither was the man who'd just turned my world upside down. It was late, past 9 p.m., and the gym was nearly deserted. I'd been coming to Iron Pulse Fitness in downtown Seattle for months, trying to outrun the monotony of my cubicle life. Desk job, predictable routine, a string of failed Tinder dates with women who never stuck around long enough to matter. I wasn't unhappy, just numb. The gym was my escape, a place where I could push my body and quiet my mind. That's where I met Caleb Monroe, my trainer, a guy who seemed to radiate confidence like the sun radiates heat. 6'2", broad shoulders, a jawline that could cut glass, and eyes that seemed to see right through me. He was 32, a former college football player turned fitness coach, and he had this way of making you feel like you could conquer anything. I admired him, respected him, maybe more, but I'd never let myself think too hard about that. That night, I was the last one in the locker room, wiping sweat from my brow after a brutal session. Caleb had pushed me harder than usual sprints, deadlifts, burpees until my lungs burned. "You're stronger than you think, Elliot," he'd said, his voice low and steady, his hand clapping my shoulder. I'd laughed it off, but his touch lingered in my mind, a spark I couldn't quite extinguish. Now, alone, I was peeling off my damp shirt when I heard the door creak open. I figured it was another late-night gym rat. But then I saw him. Caleb. He wasn't supposed to be here. His shift had ended an hour ago. "Elliot," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it. He stepped closer, his sneakers silent on the tiles. "I need to talk to you." I froze, my shirt halfway over my head, suddenly hyper-aware of my bare chest, my uneven breathing. Sure. Man. What's up?" My voice sounded too casual, too forced. I yanked the shirt off and tossed it into my locker, trying to act normal, but my pulse was racing. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he closed the distance between us, stopping just a foot away. The air felt charged, like the moment before a thunderstorm. His eyes hazel, flecked with gold, locked onto mine, and I swear I forgot how to breathe. "I've been watching you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just as your trainer. As me." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" I managed, but my throat was dry, and my hands were shaking as I fumbled with my towel. I wasn't stupid, I knew what he meant, but my brain refused to process it. Caleb was straight. He had to be. He was the guy who high-fived everyone, who talked about his weekend hiking trips, who never gave me any reason to think otherwise. Or had he? Those lingering glances during our sessions, the way his hand sometimes brushed mine when he corrected my form. Had I been blind? "I mean," he said, stepping even closer, "that I can't stop thinking about you." His hand reached out, tentative at first, then firm as he grabbed my wrist. Not hard, but enough to anchor me in place. "And I think, maybe you feel it too." I wanted to laugh, to pull away, to tell him he was crazy. But I didn't. Because deep down, in a place I'd buried so long ago, I barely recognized it. I did feel it. The heat of his touch, the intensity in his eyes. It was like a key turning in a lock I didn't know I'd been carrying. My whole life, I'd followed the script: date women, settle down, play it safe. But standing there, with Caleb's hand on me, I realized I'd been lying to myself for years. "Caleb." My voice cracked. and I hated how vulnerable I sounded. I'm not. I don't know what this is. You don't have to know, he said, his thumb brushing lightly over my wrist. Not yet. But I had to tell you. I couldn't keep pretending. The room spun. My identity. My certainty. My carefully constructed life fight was all unraveling. I should have pulled away. Walked out. Gone back to my safe little world. But I didn't. I stood there, caught in his gaze. And for the first time, I let myself wonder, what if? The next morning, I woke up in my apartment, the memory of Caleb's words burning in my mind. I hadn't slept much, replaying that moment in the locker room over and over. He'd let go of my wrist after a long silence, his eyes searching mine for an answer I couldn't give. Think about it, he'd said before leaving me alone with my thoughts. Now, sitting at my kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee, I felt like a stranger in my own skin. Who was I? Was I really the guy I'd always thought I was? Or was there something more? Something I'd been too scared to face. Work was a blur. I sat through meetings, nodded at the right times, but my mind was elsewhere. Caleb. The gym. That moment. I kept checking my phone, half expecting a text from him, half dreading it. What would I even say? By the time I got to Iron Pulse that evening, my nerves were shot. I didn't know if I wanted to see him or avoid him forever. He was there, of course, leaning against the front desk, chatting with another trainer. He looked up as I walked in, and his smile hit me like a punch to the chest. Hey, Elliot, he called, casual as ever. But there was something in his Aisa question. A hope. Hey, I mumbled, ducking past him to the locker room. I needed space. Time to think. But the gym felt different now, like the walls themselves knew my secret. I changed quickly, avoiding eye contact with anyone, and hit the treadmill. Running usually cleared my head, but not today. Every step echoed his words. I can't stop thinking about you. Halfway through my workout, I felt a presence beside me. Caleb, wiping down a nearby machine, his movements deliberate, like he was giving me an out if I wanted it. But he wasn't leaving. You okay? He asked, his voice low enough that no one else could hear. I slowed the treadmill to a walk, my chest tight. I don't know, I admitted. Last night, it messed me up. He nodded, like he'd expected that. I didn't mean to push you. Elliot. I've been where you are. Confused. Scared. But I couldn't keep it in anymore. I stopped the treadmill entirely, gripping the handrails. You've been where I am. I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. What does that even mean? He glanced around, making sure we were alone, then leaned closer. I didn't come out until I was 30. 2 years ago. I spent my whole life trying to be someone I wasn't, and it nearly broke me. I don't want that for you. His words hit hard, cracking open something raw inside me. I wanted to ask more how he'd known, what had changed, but the gym was starting to fill up, and I wasn't ready to have this conversation in public. Can we talk later? I asked. He nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes. After your session, meet me out back. I agreed, my heart racing again, and threw myself into the workout with a ferocity I didn't know I had. Caleb trained me like nothing had changed, barking orders, correcting my form. But every time our eyes met, there was a spark, a silent acknowledgement of what was brewing between us. By the time we finished, the gym was quiet again, the evening crowd thinning out. I showered quickly, my mind a tangle of fear and excitement, and slipped out the back door to the alley behind Iron Pulse. Caleb was waiting, leaning against the brick wall, his breath visible in the chilly Seattle air. You came, he said, a small smile tugging at his lips. Didn't have much choice, I said. trying to sound light. But my voice betrayed me. Caleb, I'm freaking out. I've never, I mean, I'm not gay, he finished, raising an eyebrow. You don't have to label it. Elliot. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Just tell me what you're feeling. I laughed. A shaky, nervous sound. I don't even know where to start. I've spent my whole life thinking I was one thing. And now you're standing here, making me question everything. It's terrifying. He stepped closer, his expression softening. It's okay to be scared. But you're not alone in this. I'm right here. For a moment, we just stood there, the city humming around us, distant car horns, the faint thump of music from a nearby bar. Then, before I could overthink it, I reached out and grabbed his hand. His fingers were warm, steady, and for the first time all day, I felt like I could breathe. I don't know what this means, I said, my voice barely audible, but I don't want to run from it. Caleb's smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. That's enough for now, he said, squeezing my hand. That's more than enough. The next few weeks were a whirlwind, like I'd stepped into someone else's life. Caleb and I didn't talk about that night in the alley again, not directly, but it hung between us. A quiet understanding that neither of us could ignore. We kept things professional at the gym. But there were moments, a brush of his hand as he handed me a water bottle, a lingering look when he thought I wasn't watching. Each one chipped away at the walls I'd built around myself. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for them to come down. I started noticing things I'd never paid attention to before. The way Caleb's laugh filled the room, rough and warm, like a campfire on a cold night. The way he'd push his hair back when he was focused, revealing a scar above his left eyebrow that I suddenly wanted to ask about. I'd catch myself staring, then look away, my face hot, my mind racing with questions I wasn't ready to answer. Was this attraction? Curiosity? Or was I just caught up in the intensity of someone seeing Miralai, seeing me for the first time? Outside the gym, my life felt like it was unraveling. My best friend, Marcus, noticed something was off. We'd been tight since college. The kind of friends who could talk about anything over beers at our favorite dive bar. The rusty anchor. But lately, I'd been dodging him, canceling plans, afraid he'd see right through me. One night, he cornered me after work, dragging me to the bar with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. All right, Harper, he said, sliding a pint across the table. What's going on with you? You've been weird for weeks. I took a long sip, stalling. The bar was loud, packed with the usual Friday night crowd. But it felt like we were in a bubble. Just the two of us. Just work. I lied. Big project coming up. Marcus raised an eyebrow, his dark eyes narrowing. Bullshit. You're a terrible liar. Man. Is it a girl? You fighting with someone? I laughed, but it came out sharp. Brittle. No girl. Just figuring some stuff out. He leaned back, studying me. Marcus was sharp. Always had been. Back in college, he'd been the first to call me out when I was spiraling over a breakup. The first to drag me out of my dorm and force me to live again. If anyone could sense I was hiding something, it was him. Figuring stuff out. He repeated, slow, like he was testing the words. You know you can talk to me, right? Whatever it is. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to spill everything about Caleb. About the locker room. About the way my heart raced every time I saw him. But the words stuck in my throat. Heavy and unfamiliar. What would Marcus think? He'd never been anything but supportive. But this was different. This was me. Admitting I might not be the guy he'd always known. Yeah, I said finally. My voice tight. I know. He didn't push. But the silence between us felt heavier than usual. I left the bar early, claiming a headache, and walked home through the rain-soaked streets of Seattle. My thoughts a tangled mess. By the time I got to my apartment, I was soaked, but I didn't care. I stood in my living room, staring at my phone, Caleb's name glowing on the screen. I'd saved his number weeks ago, after he'd given it to me, in case you need to reschedule. I'd never used it. Before I could talk myself out of it, I typed out a message, "Can we talk?" Not at the gym. My thumb hovered over the send button, my heart pounding. What was I doing? This wasn't me. But then I thought of Caleb's hand in mine, the warmth of his smile, and I hit send. His reply came almost instantly. "Meet me at Pike Place tomorrow, noon." The market was alive with color and sound, vendors shouting, the scent of fresh fish and flowers mingling in the air. I found Caleb near the famous fish throwing stand, leaning against a railing, a coffee cup in his hand. He was dressed casually, jeans, a flannel shirt, a beanie pulled low over his scar, but he still looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. When he saw me, his face lit up, and I felt that familiar pull in my chest. "Hey," he said, handing me a second coffee he'd been holding. "Thought you might need this." "Thanks." I took it, our fingers brushing, and I swear my skin tingled. "So, what's up?" He laughed. A low, easy sound. "You texted me. Remember? What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, the words spilling out before I could stop them. "You. This. Whatever's happening between us. I can't stop thinking about it. And it's driving me crazy. I don't know what I'm doing. Caleb. I've never felt like this before." He didn't say anything at first, just watched me, his expression unreadable. Then he set his coffee down on the railing and turned to face me fully. "Elliot, I know this is a lot. I've been there. But you don't have to have it all figured out right now. Just let yourself feel it. See where it takes you." I shook my head, frustration bubbling up. That's the problem. I don't know how to do that. My whole life, I've followed the rules. Work hard. Date the right people. Be the guy everyone expects me to be. And now you're here. And it's like I don't even know who I am anymore. Caleb's eyes softened, and he reached out, his hand resting lightly on my arm. "You're still you. This doesn't change that. It just adds to it. And if you're scared, that's okay. I'm scared too." "You." I scoffed, but there was no heat in it. "You don't seem scared of anything." He grinned, but there was a flicker of something vulnerable in his eyes. "You'd be surprised. Coming out, starting over it wasn't easy. I lost friends, family, but I gained myself, and I wouldn't trade that for anything." His words hit me like a wave, stirring something deep inside. I wanted that freedom to be myself, whoever that was. But the fear was still there, a shadow I couldn't shake. "What if I'm not ready?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the market's noise. "Then we go slow," he said simply. "No pressure. Just you and me, figuring it out together." We walked through the market for hours, talking about everything and nothing: his childhood in Texas, my awkward high school years, the time he broke his arm trying to impress a coach. It was easy, natural, like we'd known each other forever. By the time we parted ways, the sun was setting, and I felt lighter than I had in weeks. But the questions still lingered, heavy and unresolved. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Caleb's words echoed in my mind. "Just let yourself feel it." But what did that mean? Was I falling for him? Was I gay? Bi? Something else entirely. The labels felt like traps. But the feelings, the warmth, the pull, the way my heart raced when he smiled, those were real. And for the first time, I let myself imagine what it would be like to lean into them, to stop running from the truth. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk between fear and freedom. Caleb and I started spending more time together outside the gym, coffee runs, late-night walks along the waterfront, quiet moments in his apartment watching old movies. Each moment felt like a step into uncharted territory, thrilling and terrifying all at once. I was still Elliot Harper, the guy who clocked in at 9 a.m. and paid his bills on time. But I was also someone new, someone who laughed louder, who felt more, who was starting to see the world in colors I'd never noticed before. But the world wasn't always kind to change. At work, I started overhearing whispers, colleagues speculating about why I'd been distracted lately, why I was spending so much time at the gym. My boss, Linda, pulled me aside one day, her face a mix of concern and curiosity. "Everything okay, Elliot? You've been different." I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. "Just trying to stay healthy," I said, but her eyes lingered, like she knew there was more. I hated how exposed I felt, how every glance seemed to peel back another layer of my carefully crafted facade. The real test came when Marcus invited me to a barbecue at his place. It was a sunny Saturday, the kind of day Seattle rarely gets, and his backyard was packed with our old college crew, people I'd known for years, people who thought they knew me. Caleb came too, at my insistence, though I could tell he was nervous. "You sure about this?" he'd asked, his voice low as we parked outside Marcus's house. "No," I admitted, gripping the steering wheel. "But I want you here." He smiled, that warm, steady smile that made my chest ache, and followed me into the backyard. The afternoon started out fine: beers, burgers, laughter, but I could feel eyes on us. Questions unspoken. Marcus's girlfriend, Sarah, was the first to say something, pulling me aside as I grabbed another drink from the cooler. "So, you and Caleb," she said, her tone light but probing. "You guys seem close." I froze, my hand tightening around the bottle. "He's my trainer," I said, too quickly. "We just hang out sometimes." She raised an eyebrow, her expression unreadable. "Okay. Just be careful. All right. People talk." Her words stung, a reminder of the world I was stepping into, a world where every look, every touch, could be scrutinized. I glanced at Caleb, laughing with Marcus over by the grill, and felt a surge of defiance. Why should I care what anyone thought? But the fear was still there, a knot in my gut that wouldn't loosen. Things came to a head later that night. One of Marcus's buddies, Jake, had a few too many beers and started running his mouth. "What's with you and your gym bro, Harper?" he called out, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You two look like you're joined at the hip." The backyard went quiet, all eyes on me. I felt my face burn, my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. Caleb stiffened beside me, his jaw tight, but he didn't say anything. He was waiting for me. I realized, waiting to see what I'd do. "Mind your own business, Jake," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But he didn't let up. "Come on, man. We're just joking. Unless there's something you're not telling us." His laugh was sharp, cruel, and I saw red. "Back off," I snapped, stepping forward. The air crackled with tension, and for a moment, I thought I might actually hit him. But Marcus stepped in, his hand on my shoulder, his voice calm but firm. "All right, that's enough," he said, shooting Jake a look. "Let's keep it chill." Jake muttered something under his breath, but backed down, and the party resumed its hum. But the damage was done. I felt exposed, raw, like everyone could see the truth I was still grappling with. Caleb and I left soon after, the drive back to my place silent except for the hum of the engine. "You okay?" he asked finally. as we pulled into my parking lot. No, I admitted, staring at my hands. I didn't expect it to feel like this. Like I'm under a microscope. Caleb reached over, his hand resting on mine. It gets easier, he said. Not always. But it does. You just have to decide what's worth it. I looked at him, his face soft in the dim light of the car, and felt a surge of clarity. You're worth it, I said, the words spilling out before I could stop them. I don't know what I'm doing, but I know that much. He smiled, and for the first time, I leaned across the console and kissed him. It was quick, tentative, but it felt like coming home. His lips were warm, his hand steady on the back of my neck. And for that moment, the world outside didn't exist. The kiss changed everything. It was like a dam breaking, all the feelings I'd been holding back flooding through. Caleb and I started spending more time together, not just as friends or trainer and client, but as something more. We didn't put a label on it. I wasn't ready for that, but every moment with him felt like a step towards something real. But the world kept pushing back. At work, the whispers grew louder, and I started noticing sidelong glances from coworkers I'd once considered friends. One day, I found a note taped to my desk, fag. Just one word, scrawled in black marker, but it hit like a punch. I crumpled it up, my hand shaking, and threw it in the trash before anyone could see. But the word lingered, a poison seeping into my thoughts. I didn't tell Caleb about the note. I didn't want him to worry, didn't want him to see how much it hurt. But he noticed something was wrong. That night, at his apartment, he pulled me close, his arms strong and steady. Talk to me, he said, his voice soft but insistent. What's going on? I broke then, the weight of everything spilling out the note. The whispers, the fear that I was losing the life I'd known. Caleb listened, his hand rubbing slow circles on my back. And when I was done, he pulled back to look at me. You don't have to go through this alone, he said. I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. His words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the fear. What if this was too much? What if I wasn't strong enough? But as I looked into his eyes, I realized something. I didn't want to go back to the person I'd been before. That Elliot was safe, but he was also empty. This whatever it was messy and scary and real. And I wanted it more than I'd ever wanted anything. The months that followed were a balancing act. Caleb and I grew closer, our connection deepening with every shared moment. Late night talks on his balcony, quiet mornings tangled in his sheets, stolen kisses in the gym parking lot. But the world outside wasn't always kind. The note on my desk wasn't the last. There were more anonymous, cruel, slipped into my gym bag or left on my car windshield. Each one chipped away at my resolve. But Caleb was my anchor, his presence a reminder that I wasn't alone. I started opening up to others. Slowly. Marcus was the first. I told him everything over coffee one rainy afternoon, my hands wrapped around my mug like it was the only thing keeping me grounded. I braced for judgment, but he just listened, his expression soft. Man, I'm proud of you, he said when I finished. Takes guts to figure yourself out like this. And Kalebi seems like a good guy. I blinked, caught off guard. You're not. Weirded out. He laughed, shaking his head. Nah. You're still Elliot. Just happier, I think. He was right. Despite the fear, despite the hate, I was happier. With Caleb, I felt alive in a way I never had before. But the hate was still there, a shadow that followed me. At work, things got worse. Linda called me into her office one day, her face grim. Elliot, there's been a complaint, she said, her voice careful. Someone said you've been inappropriate at the gym with your trainer. My blood ran cold. Inappropriate. I repeated, my voice shaking. That's a lie. Whoever said that. I know. She cut in, holding up a hand. I don't believe it. But HR has to investigate. Just be careful. Okay. I nodded, my jaw tight. But inside I was raging. Someone was targeting me, trying to tear down what I'd found with Caleb. I didn't tell him about the complaint. Not at first. I didn't want to burden him. But secrets have a way of coming out. One night, as we lay in bed, Caleb's arm draped over my chest. He sensed something was wrong. You've been quiet, he said, his voice soft in the dark. What's going on? I took a deep breath and told him about the notes. The complaint. The way my world felt like it was closing in. He listened, his expression darkening. And when I finished, he pulled me closer. I'm so sorry, he said, his voice thick with emotion. This is my fault. I pushed you into this. No. I cut in, turning to face him. You didn't push me into anything. I chose this. I chose you. His eyes searched mine. And for a moment, we just lay there. The weight of the world pressing down, but not breaking us. We'll get through this, he said finally. Together. The breaking point came a week later. I was at the gym, finishing a set, when Jake, the guy from the barbecue, walked in. I hadn't seen him since that night, but the sight of him made my stomach twist. He smirked when he saw me, and I knew trouble was coming. Hey, Harper, he called, loud enough for the whole gym to hear. Still cozying up with your trainer? The room went quiet, heads turning. I felt Caleb tense beside me, but I put a hand on his arm, stopping him. This was my fight. What's your problem, Jake? I said, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. My problem. He sneered, stepping closer. You're the one making a scene, flaunting your little, whatever this is. I saw red, but before I could respond, Caleb stepped forward, his voice low and dangerous. Back off. Man, you don't know what you're talking about. Jake laughed, but there was no humor in it. Oh, I know exactly what's going on, and I'm not the only one who's noticed. The words hit like a slap, but they also lit a fire in me. I was done hiding, done letting people like Jake make me feel small. You're right, I said, my voice loud enough for everyone to hear. Caleb and I are together, and if you've got a problem with that, that's on you. The gym was silent, every eye on us. Jake's smirk faltered, and for a moment, I thought he might swing, but he just muttered something under his breath and walked away. The tension broke, conversations resuming, but I felt like I'd crossed a line I could never uncross. And it felt good. Caleb pulled me aside, his eyes wide. You didn't have to do that, he said, but there was pride in his voice. Yeah, I did, I said, smiling despite the adrenaline still coursing through me. I'm done running. The investigation at work cleared me, but I knew things would never be the same. Some coworkers stopped talking to me, their silence louder than any note. But others surprised Melinda, who apologized for the ordeal. A guy from accounting who quietly told me he was proud of me. The world was changing, slowly, and I was changing with it. Caleb and I kept building our life together, piece by piece. We moved in together 6 months later. A small apartment overlooking the Puget Sound. It wasn't perfect, there were still whispers, still moments of doubt, but it was ours. And every night, when I fell asleep with his arm around me, I knew I'd made the right choice. Looking back, that moment in the locker room wasn't just a surprise, it was a beginning. It forced me to question everything, to peel back the layers of who I thought I was and discover who I could be. I wasn't just Elliot Harper, corporate drone. I was Elliot, the guy who loved fiercely, who faced his fears, who found a home in someone else's heart. And that, I realized, was the most human thing of all.